Good evening. I'm Kendrick Haskins with Dusty Baker on Kendrick and Dusty Talk Sports. Still waiting on that cold open. It still hasn't come through yet, but hopefully the GoFundMe will kick in and the funds will arrive for us to have an open. But anyway,
our consistency has been that open.
We have stayed consistent. We don't have it open. But anyway, it's another day, another busy day in the sports world. Of course, today was UK Media Day. We'll get to that in a second. But, I mean, we can't get away from conference realignment, a bombshell of a day. Oregon and Washington headed to the Big Ten. We kind of knew that was coming. Well, I guess really all the stuff that happened today, we kind of saw coming.
Yeah.
It just all became official. Oregon and Washington headed to the Big Ten. Arizona State, and Utah apparently all heading to the Big 12. That one is kind of drug out a little bit. Oregon and Washington kind of happened just like that.
Yeah.
But Utah, Arizona, and Arizona State's kind of been going on all week, and it looks like it's finally going to happen. What an amazing day in college athletics.
This has been really remarkable. And as you see, this is, footage that has been shot from all the years. And, you're bringing the West Coast out east, quite frankly, in a lot of ways. And so this is very unique in the sense that, you're going to see a lot more of these teams, these faces you may not normally have seen all of a sudden facing schools a lot closer to where we live now.
Mm-hmm.
But in the grand scheme of things in college athletics, I mean, things have really changed.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to blame the NIL for the way things have gone. And it certainly has had some impact, no doubt about the way, of course, that recruiting happens. And it's changed the scope of the game. But how about the way realignment has impacted everything?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this kind of started, I would say, truly with Texas and Oklahoma. That was really the first staple as far as
domino to fall.
Yeah, and then it kind of followed after that. You had USC, UCLA going to the Big Ten, and then all of a sudden chaos ensues.
Right.
And you have the Big 12 and the Pac-12 kind of with a little tiff as far as, who's the bigger man, who's the bigger face,
Right.
and who can get the better TV deal. Well, that was the Big 12, right? They
Right.
actually had some solidification there, and a lot of respect to Yormack, the way that they've just kind of been able to push their way forward. The Big 12 has made a lot of the right moves in this chess piece, and then bringing in BYU, bringing in UCF, Cincinnati, and then all of a sudden
they're a national brand.
Yeah,
now. They're all across the country. The crazy thing is, like we were talking about in the office, what's that do to the Rose Bowl?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, basically, there's always been the Big Ten versus the Pac-10 or Pac-12, whatever you want to call them now. Now, they're all in the same conference.
Right.
So how does that work? Well, it's kind of gotten away from that format because of the BCS and all the bowl stuff. But it's still weird to see the Pac-12 is basically gone.
Yeah.
And
Sore conference.
And the Big 12, and shout out to them, because they look like they were on a lifeline for the longest, and now they have emerged as that third super conference, that third power conference. And so, of course, it all goes back to now, if you shift, instantly go back, your attention immediately shifts back to the ACC.
Yeah, that's
what happens with the
exactly
ACC. Florida State was very vocal yesterday about they want to get out. And so, and Miami has kind of made some noise. They really, and Clemson's kind of made some hints at it. So, but the thing is where are they going to go? Because it feels like Miami seems like a fit for the Big Ten. But does the Big Ten, I mean, they're already at 18. And then
it's another major market they could acquire right there. Which
to me, Miami is the one that's out there, even though, we laugh at them because every year the U is back and then they're not.
And never back.
but they are the major pieces out there because of their football tradition. Heck, they just was in the Final Four for both men's and women's basketball. And it's the Miami market that you're trying to get into. The SEC is already in the Florida market. And so the Big 12 is already in the Florida market with UCF. So Miami is the big fish, for lack of a better term, the Dolphins. But they're the big fish that's out there. Where do they go? And then if you're the ACC, to me, it feels like you make every push, even though they've made every concession in the world to Notre Dame. you've got to do anything you can to keep Notre Dame and to get Notre Dame into your conference. It feels
Notre Dame already plays the majority of these teams in the ACC. It's just this pride tradition that
they're in the ACC in every sport except football.
Football is the one thing, and there's one other thing that hasn't been discussed really a lot, and it kind of dawned on me with just the number of teams going, place to place to place. We're expanding the college football playoff. That's another thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what does this do as far as, I guess, building a resume to be able to get into the playoff? All of a sudden, you're going to be having teams like Oregon, USC with 3-4 losses. Are they going to be credited for being in the Big 10, 18, for losing 3 games to Ohio State, Michigan, and you throw a toss-up ball there, or the Penn State, like, what if that's their schedule? I mean, it's going to be interesting because all of a sudden favoritism, the strength of schedule, that conversation is going to maybe be the driving force of what's going to be an expanded playoff. And then what do you talk about with the Pac-12? And like you said, the ACC, if they lost to Miami, how much of a ding does that really do to them? I don't know. I think Louisville is in an actually decent spot right now because let's say the ACC implodes. I kind of feel like the Big 12 would be a perfect avenue for them.
Big 12 feels like an option for U of L. And then the thing is with all of it, especially with the ACC, do you start expanding east?
Right.
Maybe you go after like, a Temple,
right,
in that Philadelphia market. Maybe you go out. Well, St. John's doesn't have football, but you gotta. I think your next, if you can expand, because I don't know anybody wants to get into the conference right now because of that crazy TV deal.
Yeah.
But if they do have the option to expand, if they can rework their TV deal, I think you go east.
Yeah.
For them.
Nab a market that actually makes sense. And actually Temple is a very interesting one to throw out there because they've from time to time had success on the field. And that's the Philadelphia market, right? You're talking about a top 10 TV market. And you kind of have to sit here and think, okay, location, who makes sense proximity wise? Another one that is really interesting, and I have a gut feeling they'll be going to the Pac-12 just based off rumors, is SMU. I think SMU has a lot of intrigue just because they're in the heart of Dallas, and you're talking about
the ACC. Maybe ACC should make a run.
That's a possibility.
SMU and then UConn is also out there.
Yeah.
Granted, Connecticut's not the biggest market, but it is an East Coast
31,
market.
I want to say,
and because it's still a New England market, but we've heard them rumored to the Big 12 also. I think if you're the ACC, I just don't know how much leverage they have to go out and bring in teams because of their TV contract.
It's a little concerning. I think that, as I mentioned, I think Louisville specifically is in a pretty decent spot right now. Mm-hmm. But as for the conference, the ACC conference, you do have to sit here and say, okay, the SEC is the top dog. It's not by much, if anything, at this point. I mean, there's a real debate that the Big Ten could be.
The Big Ten might be the top dog, especially when you throw in Washington and Oregon, especially Oregon. Washington hadn't been very good lately. But Oregon is one of those. I mean, they've been in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And so they're always, heck, they've won at Ohio State not that long ago.
Yeah.
So
they've got talent across the board.
And so to me, it seems like it's obvious with the Big Ten that they're going to split off into an Eastern Division and a Western Division. But it's still, okay, you have those 4 out there. Whoever else is in that Western Division is still going to have a long way to travel.
Right.
So I would imagine, probably Minnesota and maybe Wisconsin and Nebraska, they would probably fill out.
That would make sense regionally.
Right.
That makes sense.
So that's a long way from Minnesota to Washington.
Think about the other thing that these teams, based off the way that they split the divisions, you may not be playing a team, once every year or so. Like, it may turn to be like once every 3 years, almost.
Even like because even now in the SEC, UK's playing Alabama this year, but I think they only play Alabama like once every 5 or 6, maybe longer. It may have been. I almost want to say it's like 8 years in between. Kentucky and Alabama,
which is crazy. Like, you're in the same conference, but you're not.
You never play each other.
Yeah, that's
what clearly was going to happen with the Big 50.
That's what it's coming to. And I will say this: I think that a lot of people out there, they're going to blame the Big 12 for the way that this has gone. And the reality is the Big 12 just a couple months ago was on life support.
They were on life support.
Yeah.
Well, when the ACC originally expanded and they brought in Louisville, it felt like the Big 12 was on life support. But credit to them. They've bounced back in a big way.
Yeah. Who's the, you look conference to conference, I think it's pretty easy to say SEC, it's Alabama, it's Georgia. And then, basketball wise, you're talking Kentucky's right there at the top. In the Big 10, Big 18 now, you still are, your first names you're going to mention are Ohio State and Michigan. You look at the Big 12 all of a sudden with these additions, who is there a top dog? I don't know. It seems like a pretty
basketball wise, I guess you say Kansas and Kansas State.
Yeah.
Football wise, I mean, that's a toss. The thing, if you actually look at it football wise, nothing's going to really bowl you over.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
pretty balanced, honestly.
It's balanced. I guess you would say TCU,
recency wise,
Horned Frogs are probably the dominant team that's left in there at this point.
K-State could
Kansas State's right there, and so. Yeah, that's about it.
It's balanced. I mean, that's
because Arizona's fallen on hard times. Arizona State, Utah might be the top.
Utah, TCU, and K-State. I mean, man, K-State versus Utah. That would be a fun football game because that similar brand of hard nose. We're going to run it at you, kind of gut you through. And keep in mind, USC got slaughtered by Utah earlier this, in the Pac-12 title game. So Utah's got a decent punch that they pack.
But Utah got a victim of their scheduling last year. They're coming from Utah. They're not used to that humidity down in Gainesville. So they played that first game of the season down in Gainesville. And, life caught up with Florida the very next game.
So, it was brutal.
Against Kentucky.
He had a last-second drive. And in fact, Utah had a chance, I believe, if I remember correctly, to go on and either tie or win it with a 2-point conversion.
It feels like they had a chance to win that game. But Utah was clearly better than Florida last year. That was a scheduling loss more than it was anything. But like I said, it's exciting. Yeah. It's crazy to see because it feels like something's going to happen every day.
Yeah,
and so that's where we are right now. Oregon and Washington are headed to the Big 10. Utah, Arizona, and Arizona State are all headed to the Big 12. Well, let's come back home with it because today was UK Football Media Day, right? And, the least thing we do know for sure is UK is not going anywhere. No. They'll never leave the SEC, nor should they ever leave the SEC. Their media day was this year. Was just this afternoon. A lot of expectations, but it's to me, it's kind of like cautious optimism because the offensive line struggled so much last year. But you have a Devin Leary coming in. You've got a receiving core that's as good as any receiving core in the country. Of course, our guy J.J. Weaver right there. It's great. J.J. Weaver is hilarious.
He's a funny dude.
But plus with Liam Cohen coming back, that makes such a difference with that offense. Because last year was a struggle. The big blue wall was quite porous last season, and they finished. I think it was only 2 teams worse than them in giving up sacks last year. They gave up 42 sacks last season. That's insane. So the offense should be better. And they said some of that was player fault, but Coach Stoops admitted like some of that was scheme. There's just a poor scheme. So now you got Liam Cohen back. You're going to move the ball, and there's a lot of excitement in Lexington.
I think one thing that kind of seemed to be very painted clearly today was the arrival of Devin Leary. He was really talented, by the way, at NC State. He came away with an injury. We'll talk about it late tonight at 11. But his arrival has been welcomed, and he's already made a statement early on that he is clearly wanting to be a leader on this team. His teammates respect him. There's a mutual understanding of where they're going. We talked to the receiving core telling us that it feels like there's kind of going to be more depth in that position than there were in recent days. And you even heard multiple coaches saying the same exact thing, that was kind of an area that they lacked. And offensive line obviously is the big question mark. And you had even said they're outside the top 100 in terms of allowing quarterback safety, if you will, and allowing sacks in that process. It was ugly numbers they put up last year. So the O-line trying to make a difference. Devin Leary, big face coming over to Kentucky, and Coach Mark Stoops saying, this is a time where it's not easy. This is not an easy situation in year 11 for him, because pretty simply, he's having to tie together a lot of pieces that at the end of the day are kind of all over the place, and he has to collectively put them together in a month before kickoff this year against Ball State.
You look at the roster, you look at the roster turnover, and there's not 100 guys in that room that have been there for years and have heard me talk and heard us build that culture. It's different. We have to do it very quickly. We have to adapt. We have to build this team. I feel like we have a very good football team, but we have to come together and be united and be a team very quickly.
And obviously, with the opportunity for Stoops to be able to tie these pieces together, he seems pretty confident in the team that he put together. Would you kind of say this takeaway from his press conference today? That seemed to be it.
He's very confident. I think Devin Leary gives them a sense of calm, and gives them plenty to be excited about. Devin Leary comes in, like he's coming in off a shoulder surgery. It was a scary shoulder injury that he had at the end of the season last year. But you could tell that he's a leader on this team. Just in talking to him, he really won me over this afternoon, to be honest with you. Just talking to him, I'm hoping he can stay upright, stay healthy. Hopefully the offensive line can protect him. But then talking to Barryon Brown about how willing Devin Leary is to come over and help him. He's literally said, can you meet me at the football facility in 30 minutes? And Devin Leary's there in 20. And so he's working with these young receivers. Plus, if you're Devin Leary, you got to be super excited to get this receiving core with Barryon, and you got Dane Key out there, and you got receivers out there. Then one of the guys I'm most excited about too is Isaiah Cummings, a local kid from Louisville in his third year under Liam Cohen. He was used a lot as a freshman. Last year was not used that much. You saw how big he is.
Yeah, he's massive.
He's
a stud.
He's tight end size with wide receiver speed. So you can move him all around the field. Yeah. He's one of those guys that if he's used the right way, he can be a heck of a weapon on this UK offense. But again, I think a lot of their confidence comes from Devin Leary. He just exudes leadership when he talks.
As you kind of alluded to already, Leary talked a lot about the fact that he's taking over for a program where there is depth, and he believes in the depth as well. And he mentioned just simply spreading the ball around is not going to be a difficult situation for him. In fact, it's quite the contrary. It makes him feel more comfortable in this offensive attack heading into this new year.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not really the quarterback to zero in on one specific guy. I tell them each and every play, regardless of if you're on the front side or back side of the concept, expect the ball, because you never know when I'm coming to you. And, my relationship with those guys, I mean, from the minute I stepped on campus, they brought me in like I've been here the whole time. And, we just keep growing that relationship. And, I mean, from a talent standpoint, everyone in that room brings their own typical whatever talent they bring to the table. But, I mean, collectively as a unit, they work very well together. And, I'm just very grateful to have those guys as my receivers.
Collectively as a unit, that's what you like to hear, obviously, from your quarterback. And to be able to have that kind of confidence this early on, that is a huge statement from Leary that, he's looking forward to playing for this team and not just kind of coasting along, that he actually has a belief in what's happening here.
Right. And the good thing about media day is that, some coaches and players, they just do it to get through it. Right. Just deal with it, and then it's over. But at Kentucky, they have fun with it, and so we had a chance to have some fun with some of the guys. We talked to them, and we just giving you a piece of it now. We got a lot of goofy stuff that we can show. We might just match that up and just put that online.
Really a good idea.
But they are a funny group of kids. I call them kids because I'm old, but they're a funny group of players, and we had a chance to have a little fun with them today.
This is a fun team.
It's a little different here. It's a little different. Definitely much more cameras, much more microphones, but I love it.
I eat a lot of fried food. I need to stop, but so a lot of fried chicken for sure.
How much the coaches get on you about eating fried food all the time?
Man, they be telling me to stop, but it be too good.
Stay hydrated, man. H2O, it's going to keep your body moving, legs going, your brain going to get bigger. And that's just a little fun fact from Barryon Brown.
We just have so much confidence this year, and we're just ready to go out there and show why we have the confidence. Yeah, he's a clown. This is all day. This is all day, every day. That's why I got to do it.
Oh man, that is good stuff right there, Kendrick.
I
Just to be
think what
able
the
to watch
world
that.
needs is more fun facts from Barryon Brown.
Oh my gosh. Hey, so what we gathered today for Media Day, pretty simply, a good solid meal for the Kentucky Wildcats is water,
Yes.
number one, spaghetti, and catfish.
See, you're from the West Coast.
Yeah.
So that I'm sure that threw you.
That threw me for a massive loop.
Yeah, that's a big thing in the South.
Yeah.
When JJ Weaver, of course, said that, he said that's his go-to meal for a pregame meal is catfish and spaghetti. That's a big deal in the South.
I gotta have that combo then. To me
It doesn't seem like it goes together, but you'd be surprised.
Kendrick, Kendrick was asking all the players, is there a certain
Naturally, I was
chef
asking about food.
Yeah, which is probably part of the best part about this day is like you could literally ask these guys about food and they'd like light up, right? Like you talk about like cover 2 and all of a sudden you're like, actually, what are you cooking? And they just light up. But Kendrick, what do you cook? What is the Kendrick cook?
I'm a griller.
Okay.
And so I've gotten really good at wings, my bourbon wings. I marinate my wings in bourbon. Ribeye steaks, I'm really good with that. The brisket and the ribs. Yeah, I get on the grill. Apparently, according to JJ, Octavius Oxendine is really good. Is a really good cook. He even admitted, because you never can get these players to admit somebody's better than them at anything.
Right.
But he admitted that Octavius Oxendine was the best cook between the two of them. So unfortunately we didn't get a chance to talk to Octavius, who was tied with JJ as my favorite people to talk to on the team. But Octavius had an internship today, so he had to leave right after they took the team photo. Hopefully we get to talk to him very soon.
How dare him have a good work ethic? It's just a bummer. We're going to try and see if we can get him maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow, by the way, is fan day, where you can see all these players, including JJ Weaver, as you mentioned, who, by the way, we've talked about this a couple times on the podcast. He does a lot for the community, right? Like this past week ago, he actually handed out 100 bikes. And just to be able to do this for the community here in Louisville, it's got to be pretty special considering he obviously is from this area. He was picked on as a kid. He tells us he has the sixth finger that he was made fun of, which, it's incredible what he's able to do, right? Like he's just an overall talented human being on and off the field, great human being as well. And he tells us that not only is helping the community a big deal for him, but it motivates him to just simply go out there and do what he does every day on the gridiron.
Really ain't managing because they motivate me the most, so me doing that and they tell me their stories, how they're proud of me, that make me want to work harder, like for real. So it's really motivation to me. Like I'm able to give back to my community and they able to receive the happiness and love and positive feedback, make me want to go dominate even more and make more money for real.
Make more money for real.
He's so for JJ is as funny as he is talented. But like I said, because a lot of people, knock the NIL stuff, and they act like the transfer portal and the NIL ruining college sports. Meanwhile, Washington is going to be playing away games at Penn State because that makes sense. But anyway, but this is the good side of NIL, because before NIL, he couldn't do stuff like this in college. He's going out, and a lot of these guys on both UK, U of L, and all across the country, they're doing a lot of NIL stuff for charitable work, giving back to the community, giving back to people who are less fortunate. And that's been one of the best parts of the NIL whole thing about NIL is that these players realize, they remember where they come from, and they go back. And even if they didn't come from those neighborhoods, they still go back and they try to help out in those neighborhoods.
I think it's super special that, there are so many athletes out there that use their platform for good. And whether that be for their community, for their faith, usually it seems like it's a combo of both. We talked to several players that, they mentioned faith-based is kind of the direction they go as well. It is awesome to see them do what they do in their communities and impact people around them. And it's more than just the game for them, right? Like they don't just show up for 60 minutes. They show up before, they show up after, and they show up no matter where they are. And JJ Weaver is a perfect example of that with what he does in the community. And he's a small sample size of what this entire Kentucky team does. We've seen them over the past couple of weeks have an influence in the community. And down the street here in Louisville, you see a ton of camps that take place here. So we're very fortunate in this part of the country, especially with these two universities of Louisville and Kentucky, to be able to have athletes that take the time and know that what they do has an impact beyond just scoring touchdowns, making great defensive plays. As cool as they are,
Right.
it's cool to do that. And
It
then
makes
also,
it easier to root for.
Yeah, exactly. It's cool to watch them do what they do in the community and help the people that have helped them get to this point.
And turning the page to a somber note, Clint Glasscock, major player in horse racing in this area, we found out this morning that he passed away yesterday, found unresponsive in his home. One of the nicer guys that you will ever meet. He's one of those guys I would just randomly run into Clint like anywhere. And he's always come up, wants to have loves big sports fan, and would come up and want to have a conversation about sports. Of course, he was involved in Starlight Racing, and they won the Triple Crown. And he's just one of those guys, man. It's just like you get that news and it just like hits you in the heart because, like I say, he's just one of the nicer people you'll ever meet, and could go at such a young age. I'm sorry, I did not get his age. I know he's in his early 50s at the most. And he's one of those guys that I got to know him a little bit, covering horse racing. And I'll say his name. I got to know him through our former sports director, Kent Taylor. And he's just, like I said, he's just a great guy. Just light up the room when he walked in the room. But at the same time, he wasn't an attention hog. He was usually kind of laid back, kind of in the background. But he was a funny guy, and I said he loved sports, and it just terrible news.
Yeah, it's absolutely horrible. And no matter what happens, as far as who we cover, who we go out to see, like that is the hard part of this side of the job, I guess, is you make such great connections. And for something like this to happen, I mean, it is very unfortunate. And just going back through some of the interviews that he was doing with Kent, very clearly the man had a big heart, and he had a heart for people and for racing, of course, too, and found success. I mean,
Very
found
successful.
success also. So
Very successful.
to be able to, this has been a tough year for horse racing overall, following the Derby, and this kind of just adds another layer to that. It feels like.
Right. So prayers up to the Glasscock family, and we're praying for you and all of his loved ones. So moving on, I don't know there's no smooth
There's no way to
transition from that, but shout out to Barbara Proctor. She yelled out, guys, sent us a message. Good afternoon to us. If you want to get in contact with us while we're on the show, just hit us up. We'll see it over here.
Yeah.
If you have a question for us or anything, you can always just hit us up right here, and we will try our best to answer your questions. Hey, Michael Scott. Michael Scott from The Office just wished us good afternoon. Hello,
awesome.
Michael Scott.
That's awesome. That is amazing. Appreciate you guys for watching.
I've been watching a lot of The Office here lately too. It's been on at night a lot on Comedy Central.
It's a
lately.
great show. I've gone on a Nathan For You kick. Have you ever watched that?
No, you were telling me about it yesterday.
So if you haven't watched Nathan For You, it's one of the most ridiculous shows. He basically goes.
You like a lot of ridiculous shows.
I know that's
I've
my.
noticed that about you. Not sure. A short time together.
Yeah, that's my thing. I just love ridiculous shows, and then what they offer. Like New Girl's great. Nathan For You is great. I'm rewatching How I Met Your Mother. Can't go wrong there. But I got to tell you. Thank you for all of you for tuning in, and for those of you that want to interact with us, there's so many ways of doing it. You can find us on Twitter. That's pretty much, do we call it X?
It's X.
Do we call it X now?
We get our addresses back up
Yeah.
there. That's our addresses on whatever that thing's called.
Our address, handle, like we can't have the bird on there anymore because
we learned that today.
Yeah, Elon's making things a little more difficult for us. We do have a new background though, by the way, dusk.
This is called Dusk.
It's pretty nice.
It is nice.
It's beautiful.
Maybe we'll just go with that and scrap the GoFundMe for a real background with our names.
I kind of like dusk actually.
Dusk was nice.
It looks nice. It gives me a clean, happy feel. Like the day's not over, but you still have an opportunity to seize.
But the night is still young.
The night is still young. The night is still young to comment on our Facebook post as well. So feel free to comment and ask us questions. Zeets at us with the X, or follow us also.
Is that what it's called now? Zeets?
I think that's just the easiest way to do it. It's X eat, and that seems wrong. So Zeets, Zeets, X eats. It's like
I think of the Yin Yang twins when you say that.
Elon's done this all to us. So thank you, Elon, for making this more difficult than it has to be. But you can find us at Wave News Sports. And also, as Kendrick mentioned, literally what you're looking at right there.
Those addresses down there on the X on your icon on your phone.
Yeah. It's
the artist formerly known as Twitter.
I don't like the icon, by the way, because now that there's Threads, I get notifications, and I still don't really use Threads. But
I'm not on Threads yet.
Honestly, you're not missing out on much.
I don't think I am.
It's like an attempt at Twitter, I feel like.
I heard it's basically just old Twitter.
I got all my info today from Pete the Mel. Shout out to Pete the Mel as well. For
family. I told you that.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's not the Mel.
It sounds cooler. He sounds more like he needs
Pete, that sounds like he sounds like a goon in an Italian movie, Pete the Mel.
Pete the Mel, Pete the Mel. Thank you, Pete the Mel, for the constant updates. You've done a great job. And this has been really quite revolutionary in college sports with what we've seen, and
it's not over with
yet.
It's
not over with. So get the updates from us on the X app, and like I said, at Wave News Sports is where you can find us. You also find us on these Facebook posts because we do these podcasts every single day. And if you have questions for us or topics you want us to cover,
we're sponsored by Beer Nose too. We keep forgetting to mention our sponsor,
Beer Nose is really
who makes all of this happen.
Beer Nose, thanks for making this
Thank you, Beer Nose, and we're gonna have to get a cauliflower crust pizza.
Oh, that sounds good, man. Maybe I'll do that tonight. Actually,
there you go.
Get a cauliflower pizza and watch how the Pac-12 continues to somehow burn.
Right. Yeah, from your home, from
that's
your side of the
that's
country.
Probably what I'm. Yeah, honestly,
that you grew up watching. Not what it used to be anymore.
It is crazy. I grew up a USC fan. And then my family moved to Boise, or a lot of them did, and kind of shifted to Boise State and found out about TCU through LaDainian Tomlinson, being a Chargers fan, ended up going to TCU. But I grew up initially in total Pac-12 country. Mm-hmm. And this, if you told anybody what has unfolded here, that would happen. And this would be the first power conference to go down the way it has, nobody would believe you because USC, UCLA.
Yeah, the Pac-12 following was never on the radar.
No, nobody thought that.
And then all of a sudden, it's just.
Well, remember Texas and Oklahoma? The original rumor before the SEC was they were going to go to the Pac-12. Mm-hmm. That was the original rumor, and everybody said, "Wow, this conference could be as good as the SEC." And when Oregon made it to the college football playoff and made it to the national championship in 2014, people were saying, "Okay, if it wasn't for Ohio State, is the Pac-12 all of a sudden the best conference outside of the SEC?" Mm-hmm. So it was at one point being leveled. And I think just progressively, there was just a significant drop off. Mm-hmm. And this is unprecedented as far as the size of the conference. The only one you can really jump to is probably the Big East. And the Big East didn't have
the Big East folded.
Yeah, it didn't have nearly the same top heavy motion.
Well, it didn't have the football.
Exactly.
In the Big East.
The basketball.
It was a great basketball conference. The Big East tournament in Madison Square Garden is still
insane.
It's still insane to be able to go to that.
I miss that. I miss that a lot. And now we're just getting into super conferences, and college sports is changing, man.
The whole landscape has changed. So, Dusty, you'll be back tomorrow? Are you going to do this tomorrow? Because I know you're going to Lexington.
Yeah, I'll do this tomorrow. I'm going to Lexington tomorrow. We're going to talk to Octavius, hopefully, and then we'll show for you right here, hopefully.
Hey, the great thing about this show is we have no obligation to do it. We're only obligated to do it once a week. We're giving it to you almost every day, and we're so happy and thankful for you for joining, giving us all the views. We're getting a lot of views. We appreciate every one of you who are viewing us, and everyone who likes us and retweets us and comments to us. We appreciate all of you. Well, I'm headed on vacation.
Yeah, you are.
And as a staycation, I'm not going anywhere, so you'll still see me around town. If you got a question, just come up and ask me. But
what are you doing on the staycation?
Nothing. I'm getting stuff done around the house. Awesome. You know how it is at the end of the summer, heading into the football season and the basketball season. When you don't really have time to get anything done, you got to get it all done. So this is the vacation to get everything done. So it'll be a very busy vacation, and will not be Mexico. So I'll see you in a week and a half. Dusty will see you tomorrow, and he'll be on as much as he can in the following week. But Another great day.
Another great day.
Another fun day. And probably by the time I get back, there'll be a whole new conference around.
That, and I'll have a massive sunburn from what happened earlier today because it was hot.
It was hot in Lexington. All right. Thanks for joining us. For Dusty Baker, I'm Kendrick Haskins. We will see you all soon.
Good night, everybody.